Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365, the Monday after an Eagle game. Yeah, we're kind of demeaning the fact that it's even kind of a game. But, hey, they only play 20 of them all year. Hopefully more when we get to January. But, so, yeah, we feel the need to recap some of the things that happened on the field. Oh, tomorrow, John will be talking about a more important recap of Eagles joint practice against the Browns. But first things first, Ravens, Eagles, and Jeff Kerr from CBS Sports joins us to talk about that. JK, where and when did you watch the Eagle game on Saturday night?
Oh, right by John McMullen, of course.
You were in the press box. You made down to. Did you get there before him? Because he told me it took
got
3 days to get down there.
Everybody got there before.
Well, we had the running joke. I asked where McMullen was. They said, "Oh, he passed the stadium."
Yeah. Well, I did that too because the signage in Baltimore is not the best. I yelled at Barzetta. He's a big Baltimore guy. They have awful parking lot signage in Baltimore. Terrible.
Luckily, I've been there. I've been there a lot over the years. I kind of know how to maneuver my way around to Lot B. Although I feel bad though for a couple Eagles fans because they cut me off, and I had to beat the horn at them. But they were jaywalking, and that's a no-no anyway.
All right, jaywalk. All right,
Jeff Kerr,
Jeff's hard line. Now that the trip back was easy. I coasted. I went way too fast according to the GPS. Luckily, I got through with no issues.
I take 83 in the Baltimore, so I don't have to worry about the traffic.
You got an easier road. Try 95 on a Saturday. My God, how do people do that?
I stay away from it at all costs.
Yeah.
All right, let's actually talk about something that happened on the field. What happened on the field, Jeff Kerr? What was the thing that grabbed your attention most, good, bad, or indifferent from a Bird standpoint?
Well, I'll tell you what. I don't know if John mentioned it yet, but I always thought it was significant who wasn't playing in that game. And, you had your usuals, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. The Eagles fans went nuts. I got a video of Devonta Smith catching a pass with no pads on before they actually put the pads on. They're like, oh, is he warming up? I said, yeah, he's warming up. They're all warming up. But I was curious to see who didn't play. And when I looked at the running back rotation, if you would have asked me at 4:30 if DeAndre Swift was going to play that game, I probably would have said no. But he did play. He only got 2 carries. I think he played like 7 snaps total.
Yeah.
But Kenny Gainwell didn't. And that was a big indicator for me where he stands on this football team.
Is that positive or negative?
Positive.
Yeah, I mean, but Kenny's a big part of this team. And I said if Saturday was a real game, if Saturday was week 1, he would have been the lead back. There's still plenty of time to go for other guys to catch up. They also use him in practice in high leverage situations. So, when they're backed up in the red zone, like all the important situations, they use Kenny Gainwell, which is a bit of a surprise, to be honest, from where we started. But Nick did talk about that after, and he said, I'd like to get running backs tackled. I don't know. Take this as convoluted or not. And it was DeAndre and Rashad's turn next week, meaning Cleveland on Thursday night. Kenny and Boston will get an opportunity. So you can finagle that as good for one duo and bad for the other, or vice versa. But behind it for me is they put Kenny in every high leverage situation. Now, did they think he can carry it? Maybe they're only going to use him as the high leverage back. I don't know. Running back is an interesting situation for this team.
Do you think a lot of it has to do with he's been in the system? This is his 3rd year now.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, they're comfortable with him. But we always talk about the injury history with Penny, and rightfully so. We always talk about DeAndre Swift missing 4 games a year, always seems to have some soft tissue. And Kenny is never had a high volume before. I don't know if you can count on anybody to take 250 snaps. So they're gonna it's gonna be interesting to see how they handle running back.
I think it's still to be determined. I don't know that there is another running back.
But other than Kenny's going to be a part of it, and DeAndre's going to be a part of it, and everybody else, we'll see.
To be determined. Agreed. All right. How about on the defensive side of the ball? We did mention Jalen Carter just blowing away the Raven defender on his first snap in the NFL, which was pretty damn impressive. But any other Eagle jump up and say, wow, they're good for him. Took a step forward, probably improved the way he's looked at by the Eagle coaching staff with his performance.
Yeah, I want to hear Jeff's answer because I got my answer. But
okay. I had a couple answers here. So I liked how Mario Goodrich played, to be honest. I thought he had a good game. I know it wasn't Eli Ricks worthy in terms of stats, but I liked how he played. I think he's still in the mix to potentially make this team as a cornerback. I know it's very deep, by the way. You know, Josh Job's the number 3 cornerback right now. Eli Ricks is definitely in the mix. That's the I will say, though, I thought Sidney Brown did look good for him playing as fast as he plays. And I know he's gotten criticized for this, how fast he plays. I thought he gave a really good answer Saturday night. He goes, look, look, basically he gave a method behind the madness of why he plays as fast as he does. And he doesn't leave any stone unturned. There's no regrets here. And I thought the preseason was going to be good for Sidney Brown because you do get to hit actual teams. You know, it's not
the Pats come on. That's where Reed stood out. That's when Reed
exactly
opened the eyes of this coaching staff. That's my guy, Jody, Sidney Brown. And I think it's apropos that Jim Schwartz is coming in this week because Jody knows I say it never ending. That's who I got it from. Jim, startup cost. Got to get the startup cost over. Sidney Brown, yeah, he's going to make some mistakes, but you see, he's got that burst and that range that the other safeties on this team just do not have. So if you look at the Eagles' schedule, right, we're all saying it's pretty easy early. Get the startup cost over, and hopefully he's ready to go when the tough murderers row part of the schedule. Get Sidney Brown out there, man.
I noticed
Reed
this.
And Sidney.
I noticed this too, John. When I was rewatching the game last night, and I posted this on Twitter. He wasn't targeted once in that. I mean, I know they weren't throwing much at the end of the game, and he was in the second half, but they threw a little bit. Tyler Huntley was in there. He didn't even target Sidney Brown
because Tyler Huntley's smart.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
hokey John Harbaugh trying to win a preseason. That was bull. You know what, Jeff? Come on.
Oh yeah. Oh, so now that I'm
going to roll out Tyler Huntley in the second half.
I talked to some
24 in a row, Johnny Mac.
Yeah.
He's won 24 in a row.
I talked to some of my buddies on the Ravens beat after the game. I'm like, so none of you decided to ask John Harbaugh why your second teamers are playing against third teamers in the third quarter? Well, we know Tyler Huntley's QB too. He was a Pro Bowler last year. That's what they said back to me. And I was just like, oh, so he was trying to win a preseason game.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, you know what? I forgot. I should mention to both you guys. One of the coolest moments, I've been covering this game for way too long, so I don't get excited by much. But when Greedy Williams missed that tackle and put the Ravens in field goal range at the end of that, and I put that in quotations.
But Justin Tucker kicked that 60-yarder?
60 yards, and it would have been good from at least 65, maybe 70. That guy.
He is amazing.
That's like watching Tom Brady play quarterback. It's kicker, but I was like, that's awesome to watch that guy.
Justin Tucker in that humidity Saturday night with all that open air. You knew it was good as soon as he kicked it.
It's unbelievable. The ball, and with all NFL kickers, including Jake Elliott's a tremendous kicker. And you see the ball come off his foot in practice, and he's a small guy, and you're like, wow. But then you watch Tucker, and it's like, he's a different species, the ball coming off his foot.
Speaking of kickers, by the way, John, you happen to notice Ty Zettner was the one holding when Jake Elliott missed the 45.
Yeah, but that wasn't Ty's fault. That was a bad snap by Rick Lovato.
Yeah, I was going to say Lovato. By the way, Lovato had a special teams tackle on Saturday night.
Yeah, he got the fumble recovery, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he got the fumble recovery.
Good on Rick. All right, need both of your takes on this one. The Philadelphia Eagle linebacker that showed me something this week was who?
41 for me, the great Nick Morrow.
Yeah,
Nick Morrow
had a good game on Saturday night.
Yeah, I thought he was instinctive. I thought he had the green dot for a little bit. He was running the defense. I thought, people don't want to hear it, but I thought he was clearly the best of, Nakobe didn't play. So we're talking, he and Christian Ellis started. He was better than Christian. Miles Jack, Zach Cunningham were just kind of, all right.
Zach Cunningham,
Nick Morrow to me. Yeah.
Zach Cunningham, I was watching him a lot in that second half, and he just looked like he looked like he just signed with the team 6 days prior. That's how he looked. Same with Miles Jack. And when I rewatched the game, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to put too much stock up or stock down in the year to the two, but I agree with you, John. I thought Morrow looked like he's been on this team since the end of March and was in this system, and it was like Sidney Brown, just get another team's jersey so he can hit somebody and make a play.
Yeah. I think he's a solid player, but he's got a limited upside. He's not going to make a lot of mistakes. He knows how to play. Whatever you want. I called him a professional hitter in my notes. If you're a baseball guy or a savvy kind of 6-man, doesn't have a ton of talent, but he just knows how to play. And that's as good as the Eagles have right now. But can they get better?
That's not great if that's the case. A savvy 6th man is your best linebacker performer. I know it's only the first preseason game.
Well, Nakobe's not there either. So,
linebacker is a question for the Eagles at this
By the way,
point.
John, do you think we see Nakobe tonight?
Yeah. I don't think he would. We were talking about it in the opening segment, Jeff. I didn't necessarily put him in the deference category. Like, the Hurts, the Slays, the Bradburys, the Johnsons, all the deference players that went down and with Jody. Nakobe was sort of, I was going back and forth, but I think
he had the ankle injury too.
Yeah, I think it had more to do with the ankle injury being extra cost, is simply because they played Jordan Davis. Now, if he played, he would have only played for 6 snaps, so who cares either way. But yeah, he's got to get out there. And I think these will be 2 big days for him against Cleveland because the Eagles value this more than the preseason stuff.
And by the way, the practices here against the Browns, speaking of Browns, you mentioned his name, John, Greedy Williams. Not great.
No,
he is no lock to make this team. Jeff mentioned all the good young DBs that the Eagles have that are all kind of fighting for a limited amount of jobs. Well, one of them very well could be Greedy Williams' job, that the Eagles brought him in. He did get more guaranteed money than Nicholas Morrow, who got 0, but he didn't get a ton of guaranteed money either. If you're a betting man, you think Greedy Williams is going to make this team?
No.
I think he's a long shot at best now. And I think he was ahead of Ricks. Now I think he's behind Ricks, and I don't think Ricks is going to make the team.
I'll tell you what, here's another one that I think could make the team just based on special team, especially now that Sean Bradley's out. I watched Mekhi Gardner a lot Saturday, and when you're the first one down at least on 2 consecutive punts, and when you force a fumble and you're making special teams plays like he did, that's how you make a roster. So Mekhi Gardner, to me, his stock's really up after that.
And he's played well in camp. Yeah. So, he's he's stacked days together. Eli made splashes in the game. Like, Gardner's ahead of Eli Ricks. He's still ahead of Eli Ricks. There's no question in my mind. But they're so deep at corner. They really are. You mentioned Goodrich. He's the 3rd slot corner on this team. They are tremendously stacked at corner. We talk about it on the defensive line a lot, the depth. The cornerback depth is very, very good.
I'll say this, for 31 other teams, if you're watching around the league, some of those guys are going to get picked up off waivers. Like I think John Harbaugh looked pretty. Look, he had Kayvon Seymour out there, and I know Seymour's had a good camp for the Ravens.
Former Eagle, by the way.
Yeah. There was another. Wasn't there another former Eagle in that game? I'm trying to.
I don't have my
referring to
Ravens roster in front of me. I'm sure there's some.
By the way, I totally forgot Melvin.
Darryl Worley.
That's who it was. There, yeah.
Well, he was an Eagle for a very, very short period. Very
for
short.
Like 2 weeks. Yeah, because they interviewed him after the game. And who was another one? Oh, I totally forgot Melvin Gordon played for the Ravens.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget.
It's easier to forget. I would say, talking about linebackers, that Justice Hill run, Ringo, there's another, we haven't even brought up Ringo at corner, who's locked in, don't get me wrong, but he and Christian Ellis really got pinned inside as he kicked it outside. So that wasn't the best moment for those guys.
Jalen misread his blocker too on that.
Yeah.
He even said he did.
Yeah. So there was some good and there's some bad, but Rick's making those splash plays late. Jody brought that up. Yeah, other people might say that and say, oh, this guy's from, 5-star recruit from Alabama. He's obviously got talent. Maybe you lose him on waivers. Right, but people are saying he's going to make the 53, Jeff. I don't see it. He's got a lot of people to jump over.
I'll tell you what, though, he got himself noticed, though, which is huge.
Oh, yeah. It's always a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you what, he was very professional in his interview, too. Just the whole, he was excited to see people come and talk to him. Like, he was the star. And, Dave Segarra was asking questions. I was asking questions to him. I asked him, so when did you get fully healthy, by the way? He's like, October. He said, October, I felt like myself again the last year. Because he said, I didn't have enough time to kind of gather the tape I wanted. And he said he chose Philadelphia because the culture, the environment. He said, and look, he goes, I felt like this is my best chance to prove myself. And good for him.
As telegraphed as the play may have been, a pick six is a pick six. It does stick with you, and it's going to help him. Now he's got to continue to do it starting tonight against the Browns, but he upped his status a little bit with that one particular play. All right, one more DB question. Zach McPherson, the backup in the slot, starter in the slot because Deference player starter did not play. I didn't notice him. I didn't see him make any mistakes. He surely didn't
returning punts.
Yeah, he returned punts on Saturday night.
Other than returning punts, I'm talking about actually from the
line. Well, I only bring that up because I'm like, what the hell is Zach McPherson doing returning punts? He has never, and I say never, guys, 3 times, taken even a rep as a punt returner.
I don't remember him doing that at Penn State or Texas Tech either. Definitely not at Penn State.
Yeah. And he's out there in a game, and I'm thinking, what the hell is Zach McPherson returning punts for? And then it became, well, Cubby got scratched for the hamstring.
That's my takeaway. Britton Covey is on this team.
Well, he's got a hamstring issue, but he is on the team. Greg Ward got hurt in the game, just tweaked, not seriously. By the way, Greg Ward was great, Jody. Oh, your guy.
Your guy got open, Jody.
He catches it. He might not turn it upfield. He might not break a tackle. He might not get into the end zone. But if you throw it to him, Greg Ward's going to catch it.
Him and Tyree Cleveland, they were open all night long.
Yeah, he looked like he tweaked a hamstring or a calf or something. So we'll probably hear something about Greg. So he was out. He might have cramped, and it was so hot. It might have been cramped, so maybe he isn't. But that's probably the best case scenario. But he was out, and then they give reps to Devontae, who's obviously not playing, and he wouldn't do it anyway. They do it for high level situations. AJ does it for fun, but he wasn't playing, obviously. And Quez occasionally does it, and he was scratched. Those are the guys who get reps in practice at punt returner. Zach McPherson has never, ever taken a rep, but they didn't have anybody else to do it. And that's why it's sort of the reason I bring that up is the coaching staff trusts Zach to do a bunch of different things.
Sure.
So even though he didn't, and I'm with you, Jody, you didn't notice him that much, but he's just rock solid. I mean, they love the guy. He can play outside. He can play inside. He's returning punts. Probably return kickoffs. Yeah, they trust him, and that's a big thing.
Sign.
He's a very quiet guy too, John.
Really nice guy too.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Like it's fun. You got Slay, Bradbury, and then you have C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Then all of a sudden you see Zach McPherson next to him. And every time Slade talks, you just kind of hear him giggle in the background. Like, because, man, I'm kind of glad I don't have to be a part of this circle. Then C.J. talked for the little he talked last year. And he's just like, hey, I'm kind of glad I'm Zach McPherson right now.
Yeah, let me follow up on a name that Jeff brought up, and that's Tyree Cleveland. 10 targets. Now, I'm sorry. He wasn't the number one target on all those plays. So he's got to be the second or third, checking down, getting through your progressions, and still going to Tyree Cleveland. How much did he help his chances? Not going to make the roster, but to be a practice squad guy because, as Jeff said, I don't even know if he was always open, but he was always an option. And, yeah, the quarterbacks chose to throw it to him 10 times. How much did he improve his status in both you guys' eyes?
I'll say this. I watched him like 6 or 7 straight plays on the one drive, and he kind of was always open. I'll tell you what, Jody. I think he does make this practice squad. If they keep 6 receivers, I think he's in the conversation. But he was on the practice squad last year, and he knows the system. And hey, I'll tell you what, Tanner McKee trusts him. I'll say that. It was before he even hit the break, Tanner McKee was throwing to him. So I'm like, well, McKee's seeing something.
By the way, Ian Book should learn from Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee, as Jeff just mentioned, back foot, boom, ball's coming out. Trusting his receivers. And Nick said, Tanner McKee was pretty impressive. I got a bunch of, is he going to push Mariota? I don't know if you did, Jeff. No, he's not pushing Marcus Mariota.
Marcus,
but Ian Book in the rearview mirror for the third quarterback as of right now.
No. He won that job. If you're looking at somebody who won a job, Ian Book lost the job. Not that Tanner was ahead of him, but you got to, man, you got to process and trust your receivers and throw the ball. And that's what Tanner McKee did. And that's big. It really is. Because you saw the exact opposite. Ian Book wouldn't throw the ball. He's running around like took a 21-yard sack.
Yeah. There were guys open too on that 21-yard sack. He just didn't want to throw it.
You got to pull the trigger. As far as the receivers, those sort of back end guys, the big, I call them the size guys. Johnny King just got here, but he kind of impressed me.
Yeah, nice catch.
Cleveland was, the traffic guy. Hazelwood even had a big catch. Joseph Nada is the guy who everyone was talking about. He did not play well. And he doesn't get separation. That was sort of the knock on him coming out of Clemson because he's a big physical guy, but he's going to have trouble getting separations. I think.
John, there was a play.
He hurt himself.
Yeah, with Joseph Nagata. It was the McKee throw to the end zone. I thought McKee actually placed the ball only where God could catch it. It was a tough catch, but I don't know. Maybe I'd have to look at the replay a little more, but I felt like he could have corralled that, yet that pass that was low.
Yeah, I'm right now, they're probably going to keep 2-3 receivers on the practice squad. I thought Cleveland really helped himself. I think King helped himself. Hazelwood sort of in that dark area, and I think Nada hurt himself in that race.
Another player I thought stood out, and I tweeted about how bad the third-team offensive line was. Apologies to Fred Johnson, because
Fred played well.
Yeah, he did. He played really well.
Yeah,
and he's a solid starter. Like he was not a solid starter, but he's a solid veteran. He's played.
I think he had he had the big. I have to look it up. I think Pro Football Focus gave him the top grade of any Eagle offensive player.
I could see it
at the preseason game. They ranked the pre.
Oh yeah.
Put out rankings on that game.
Oh yeah, I'm pulling it up as we speak.
They're dedicated. I'll give them that much.
Our analytics department does. I mean, we're partnered with True Media, but they do a lot of stuff. And they'll ask me, they're like, "Hey, what do you think of this? Like, these are this guy's coverage stats." I said, "Yeah, I'm watching the game. That kind of looks right." So. And
all right, and I'll give you guys the top 5 players, according to PFF, were offensively Fred Johnson, Julian Good-Jones, Greg Ward. I'm with him on Greg Ward. Cameron Tom and Tanner McKee. tied
Now,
with
see,
DeAndre. Tied with DeAndre.
I was going to
Swift.
say, does DeAndre Swift have enough to qualify?
I was going to say,
Yeah.
does volume count at all? If
No, well, no, it normally does, but DeAndre only played 6 snaps, so yeah, he was up there. But for the guys who played significant snaps, it was Fred, Julian Good Jones, Greg Ward, Tanner McKee,
Cameron Tom,
and Hazelwood. Hazelwood was 5 for the guys.
Okay.
Now the guys who they said played poorly were
let me guess, Tyler
Ian
Steen.
Book.
Ian Book. Kennedy Brooks was worse.
Oof, that's right.
Well, he ain't making the team anyway.
Tyree Jackson did not get a good grade, and Joseph Nada, who I just talked about, did not get a good grade.
That Tyree Jackson, I forgot he was even in the game.
Defensively, Ricks obviously got a great grade. You know, I mean,
Pick 6.
yeah,
Six will get you that.
I don't. He was in coverage, I don't know, 12 times, and he got 3. He got an interception, 2 pass breakups, so that's pretty good. Goodrich. Obviously, Jalen Carter, but he doesn't count because he had 2 snaps. He murdered Ben Cleveland on one of them. His old teammate, I think.
That's why I said he kind of cheated. He did what Ben Cleveland was.
I think poor Ben was declared. That was embarrassing for him. Kayvon got a good grade, and Nicholas Morrow got a tremendous grade, which I agree with.
Kayvon had a good game, by the way. Kayvon had a good game.
The bad grades were, I don't want to pile on because he got hurt, but Sean Bradley, he only had 13 reps before he got hurt. Christian Ellis, who did not play well. Noah Ellis, the Ellis brothers, not a good day.
They don't have the good Ellis. That's the problem.
Yeah, the really
he's on the Falcons.
Nolan Smith did not get a good grade. He had 1 good pass rush, and Greedy Williams, which I think
Greedy
people
did
saw
not
that.
look good for me. And one other note, just from a schematic point, and I don't want to overemphasize this because the coach did address it, about throwing the ball to the running backs out of the backfield, and said, we didn't do much last year because you play with what you have. If it's not a strength of your team, you don't do it. You don't force feed it, which I agree with Sirianni on that stance. But people are projecting because John comes on after practice. They're running a lot of plays. The guy's coming out of the backfield, and they got Swift spread right. 35 passes, 3 to guys out of the backfield. That's not a big percentage of throwing to the guys out of the backfield. Now, Swift was in and out before you knew it. Gainwell didn't even play. Those are probably their 2 best receivers. I think they threw it to Sherman twice and somebody else once, but they only threw 3 passes to the guys out of the backfield. Am I trying to read into this too much, John, that people are overstating it, or do you just throw it out because the guys who are best at it?
No, yeah, I throw it out for that reason. The guys they're doing it with would, and really it's only Swift, to be honest. It's not even Gainwell that much. But Swift is the guy they've been specifically using in practice, sort of outside and lined up as a receiver and designing plays for him. So it's really, it's not running back related, it's Swift related. They think he has those traits.
See, that's why I think Swift is going to be the number 1 guy, not Gainwell. People go, Gainwell's going to be the number 1 guy. No, he's not. Swift is.
Well, I think it depends. Everything depends on your definition. If it's most touches, maybe.
Most touches, most snaps. What else are you going to determine it by?
Well, there's a lot of.
Well, he could be a decoy for A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, Chris Watkins.
That's what I mean. If you know they're using him in that role, they might take away from his running touches, and that might elevate. Could be Rashad Penny. If they go truly committee, which I would not advocate for, I would not do it that way. I would want to try to find the guy, and then I bring up the high leverage situations because, you know, when you're trying to win a game, who's on the field is pretty important. And that's been in practice. And again, it's just practice, but that's what the Eagles value. In practice to date, that's Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah, but so John, how do you judge what's a high leverage situation in practice?
Because Nick tells you.
Yeah, because they got the bullhorn and the game situations. They practice
third and 8. It's Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah. And even forget about red zone end of game, which is always Gainwell. When they're backed up, they do backed up drills, and you're coming out. You're on your own 2-yard line. It's Kenny Gainwell. It's always Kenny Gainwell in high leverage situations. Now maybe it changes, but as of right now, that's the way it's been.
And let's not understate Swift here. I mean, he is going to play a vital role in this offense this year, but it is Kenny Gainwell. And I honestly think it's more of a knock on Rashad Penny than it is DeAndre Swift. Everybody keeps taking this the wrong way. It's nothing against DeAndre Swift. It's look at Rashad Penny right now. That's what I'm wondering. Like, what's the future for?
Yeah, I mean, well, I've said from the start he could be, the starter, the lead back, whatever you want to call it, the guy getting the most touches. Obviously he would be more of the conventional first and second down back, and then you'd bring in a Gainwell or a Swift, or he could be off the team. I've said that from day one, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have any financial obligation to keep him on the team.
And that's why. So, I mean, these will be big practices for the running backs. These will be really big practices, not only for the performance, but to sort of understand where the Eagles coaching staff is, because they can't hide it anymore. They're going to show who they want, at least right now, to be out there week 1.
Yeah, this will actually be high leverage situations, not just to a bullhorn and create high leverage. Yeah. When you're playing against another team in a different uniform, and you know where the football is on the field and what the downs are supposed to be, that's tipping their hand. You are right, John. You're going to get a much better read today from a joint practice against another team than any of the practices the Eagles have against themselves.
I'll say this too with Rashad Penny. I don't let the box score deceive me. I thought Rashad Penny was fine on Saturday night. I thought fine. I thought he had the burst on that one run. He was reading the holes well. I would be really curious to see Rashad Penny run behind Cam Jurgens and Lane Johnson compared to what he was running behind on Saturday night.
Yeah, and that helps as well. Yeah, you're right. Trey Sermon, guy we haven't mentioned. I'm trying to look, since I had PFF, who they had Swift, but he only played six snaps, as I mentioned, as the highest, but that's a very small sample size. And then Trey Sermon was next, and he had 29 reps. He didn't stand out to me at glance, and Penny was, not effective from their standpoint. So, but he looked fine. That's from the eye test. Penny looked fine to me. Sermon, I didn't notice that much, but they're fine tuning it down to blocking and all that kind of stuff.
JK, we kept you for 20 minutes. You can read all of Jeff's stuff, cbssports.com. He comes on with us every single week. We appreciate it whenever he does. What do you got planned for this upcoming week, Kerr?
So I will be at the joint practice tonight with McMullen, and I'll be at the game on Thursday.
Bad day for Jeff Kerr. I'm sorry.
It's always a bad day when I see you, John McMullen. But I do have my week 1 preseason overreactions and reality checks, which is apparently really popular on cbssports.com. I'm still trying to figure out why, because a lot of it's the one time I do hot takes, but I'm actually going to do an Eagles-centric one that's going to come out later today.
Hot takes, Sidney Brown, baby.
Sidney Brown.
CBS on X. I have to say that.
It's Sidney Brown season, John McMullen. Just embrace it and live with it.
Yeah. Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, here with us. I'm Bird 365. Thanks, JK. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Jeff.
That's Jeff Kerr. All right, Johnny Mac, one quick question for you before we get to a break. Sirianni going to talk before practice or only after practice? What's the coach's availability?
Before practice, but not until tomorrow. Sean Desai is going today before practice.
Okay, because 2 questions I'd like to see Sirianni handle before practice. How about that Trey Sermon? Who he seems to go out of the way to pop up for whatever reason. And he wasn't great as per PFF or Jody Mack in game number 1. And you talk about swimming upstream to make this team. I just don't see it happening. And the other Sirianni question I'd love to see asked was, how's that competition at right guard going which he refuses to acknowledge, has
Well,
already been decided. If it wasn't decided before his second
well,
year.
like I said, Jody, he gave the non-confirmation confirmation. I asked him that at the link practice, and he was joking around with me and smiling. Everybody knows Ken. He flat out said, "I'm not naming him the starter because I don't have to." That's what he said. He's the starter. Everybody knows it.
But I'd like to just see him have to sweat it for another one to come out and say, "I know, but I'm not telling you." Yeah, that if you're gonna play it that way, Nick, then you got to at least feel the pressure of it. I'd love to see someone ask him that same question over and over and over again until he goes, "Yeah, Jurgens is the starter." All right, he's McMullen. I'm McDonald. We're Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. Come back. Couple of things Eagle related, couple of league related things I want to get run by Johnny Mac, and then our boy Chris Franklin from NJ.com going to hop on in about 20 minutes here on Birds 365.